Hi, my name is Terran McGinnis. I'm the Manager of Education and Community Development here at Marineland Dolphin Adventure, and I'm talking to you from one of our museum rooms here. Marineland turned 80 years old this summer in 2018. We were founded in 1938 as Marine Studios. And the reason that our name is a little bit different now than what it was is because when we were founded, the original plan here was actually to be a movie studio. Douglas Burden and Ilya Tolstoy and Cornelius Vanderbilt Whitney were our three founders, and they all had ties to Hollywood, and they knew that one of the things that was really missing there was an opportunity to film underwater. And you need to remember that back in the 1930s, that was before scuba diving had been invented, before there were underwater cameras, and so movies had no way of getting that kind of great footage that we now are used to seeing in films all the time. And so these three founders had this idea that if they could build an above ground but underwater film studio, they would totally revolutionize filmmaking. And that's exactly what they did. They chose this particular location in Flagler County to build this almost 1 million gallon giant oceanarium with over 200 porthole windows so that the filmmakers could film through from any angle, no matter what the shadows, no matter what the clouds, no matter what the animals were doing, there was always going to be the perfect shot. And that term oceanarium was coined specifically to describe marine studios, different from aquarium, and the reason for that specifically had to do with the fact that we were mixing different species of animals together. So an aquarium, typically you think of, you'll have your fish over here, and maybe your sea turtles over there, and maybe your stingrays over there, but an oceanarium brings all of them together. And the reason that we needed to do that here was because if we were trying to replicate the ocean for movie making, well, we needed to have all the animals together, because that's how they live in the ocean. So we were the world's first oceanarium, and construction began in 1937 and was completed in 1938. And once it was done and the structures were built and the water was brought in directly from the ocean, there's big pipes that go under the beach out to the ocean that brings in direct straight Atlantic Ocean water. We had the animals, everything was going well, everything looked great. We were ready to get down to the business of making movies. But it sort of seemed only polite to invite the locals to come on out, the neighbors who had put up with this loud, dusty construction project, maybe some of the local media, some of the local politicians, so everybody could see really who we are before we got busy making movies. We expected maybe a few hundred folks to show up for this grand opening event, which was June 23rd, 1938. And 30,000 people showed up for the event. Only 20,000 made it inside the gates. The other 10,000 were stuck in a horrendous traffic jam on A1A. And right around then, I imagine, is when the founders kind of went, maybe what people really want is to see these animals and get to have the chance to see up close fish and huge sharks and sea turtles and dolphins in a way that they never had before. And maybe movie making can be sort of a secondary business that's happening here. And that's really exactly what happened. Because those 30,000 people that showed up for opening day did not show up to watch a movie being made. Those people, even though they lived in this coastal community, had no idea what was happening out in the oceans. And this is their first opportunity to see these animals close up. And one of the things to keep in mind about the 1930s is it was a very different time than now with regard to people's relationship with the oceans. And folks really thought of marine species as something to be dominated or to be feared. Either way, it didn't end well for the animals. Animals were seen either as a food source or something that was dangerous to us and trying to eat us, or something that was competition with us for the food source. And either way, animals were being hunted out there, and that included dolphins. So when people came to Marineland, they weren't seeing animals that they loved. They had no reason to love these animals. They had just not that kind of relationship. But coming here and being able to look through all those 200 porthole windows and watching the animals being beautiful, being funny, interacting with each other, watching the dolphins being exactly as we know they can be, being interactive at the windows, having babies, nursing babies, raising babies, all of that changed the way this local community's relationship with the ocean continued to develop. No, I always like to say that Marineland both guided the local community's feelings about marine species and also was guided by the local community's feelings. We have certainly reinvented ourselves over and over and over the years. I think that's why we're still here 80 years later. And we've reinvented ourselves at the public's demand, depending on what the public found interesting or what they were passionate about, what they were interested in, what they wanted to learn more about, and what they cared about. So they have certainly guided who we are, how we teach, what animals we show. But we've also really done the same in turn for them and given people a chance to think of the ocean as something precious and worth saving, and seeing the animals as something other than something to be afraid of or something to eat. So it's really been a great mutual relationship between Marineland and the local community. So after that opening day, while we kind of veered away from filmmaking as being our primary business plan, and we really instead prioritized education and research and public display, but we didn't stop making movies. So over the years, there's been films, there's been commercials, there's been newsreels, all filmed here. And in fact, we're still doing that today. We just filmed a movie earlier this year. We start filming for our next one next week, in fact. And so there's going to be a continuation of that original Marine Studios goal, but never stopping the research and education and the animal care that we're really famous for. Marineland, as we're now called, was actually the first place to ever successfully breed bottlenose dolphins. Now you think of that as happening all around the world at marine mammal facilities, but it happened here first. This is also the first place where echolocation was discovered. So dolphins' abilities to send out sound waves, wait for those sound waves to bounce off of something in their environment and bounce back, and the dolphin's ability to listen to those echoes and get a visual image of what's out there, that was discovered here. So that's really amazing. And the other thing that was obviously hugely formative for us was that this is where dolphin training was discovered. And now that's all over the world, right? And you can see trained dolphins everywhere. And it all started here on this little stretch of A1A in Flagler County. And it happened because the general belief at the time was that no marine animal could be trained. They were just too different from us. There was no way we would ever be able to communicate well enough with them to train them. But internally, all of the staff who had had any interactions with the dolphins started to believe that that might be wrong, because they already felt like maybe the dolphins were trained already, and that in turn they were kind of training the staff there. So somebody posed the question, I'm starting to doubt it. I kind of think maybe dolphins can be trained. And somebody else wisely said, well, if ever there was a place to do that science experiment, it's here. So in fact, they ended up hiring a fourth generation circus animal trainer named Adolf Frohn, and that was in 1949. And they just asked him to prove whether or not a dolphin could be trained. And he happily took the job, but he was pretty sure that what he was going to prove was that no, of course dolphins can't be trained. Everyone was surprised when a year later, Flippy, a 2-year-old male bottlenose dolphin, had been trained 6 different behaviors. And that really sort of turned the whole, marine mammal, public display, aquarium world on its head, because nobody knew that that was possible. So that was in 1949 to 1950, and by 1954 we had built the Dolphin Stadium to highlight our trained dolphins, and they actually called that area the Educated Porpoise Show is what we were presenting at that point. They were not, of course, porpoises. We've never had porpoises here. They were bottlenose dolphins. And Adolf Frohn was the one who brought that ability straight here to Marineland. And then other facilities learned, and now it's sort of commonplace that that all happened here. And that's really just changed the entire way that the community thinks about dolphins, because once you could train them, you could really highlight different amazing ways that their body is adapted, so you could teach about them better. You could do shows, right, with amazing, funny storylines and acrobatic behaviors. But most importantly, you could train them for their own medical care. So think of a child going to the doctor and needing maybe to get a blood sample taken. If the child is just a little baby and you have to physically hold their arm, well, that's scary for the kid and maybe a little bit stressful, and maybe even changes the blood values when you analyze that blood sample because the person wasn't participating, wasn't voluntary. But if you get a little bit older and the doctor says I need to take a blood sample, and you can voluntarily just present your arm, and you know it's going to be no big deal, and you know it's going to be quick, and you know you're going to get a lollipop at the end, then you're relaxed and everything is easy, your health care is better, you are an active participant, and the blood values are accurate. And that's exactly what medical training or husbandry training has allowed us to do with dolphin care, is allow them to be participants in their own health care with trained behaviors where we can ask them to show different body parts, whatever it is that they need to have us examine, and they're as involved as we are. So all of that has really just revolutionized animal care here, and that's all part of dolphin training. Nowadays, what people want is to get in the water with dolphins, and this is just amazing to me. If you, again, go back 80 years to when we opened, and dolphins were used as target practice. There was no love for dolphins at all. People thought of dolphins as nothing different than the fish and the sharks out there in the ocean, and fishermen saw them as competition. So again, they were used as target practice. Then Marineland opened and people could come look through the windows at the dolphins. That got them a little bit more connected. Then dolphin training was discovered, and there were shows, and people thought, oh, they're hilarious, they're funny, I love them. And that really changed the way people thought. And now people have gotten to the point where they love them so much that they just want to be in their space with them. They want to hold them, they want to care for them, they want to feed them, they want to make eye contact, they want to feel what it's like to be that kind of connected with a dolphin. So now we're doing dolphin interactive programs. It's a different kind of animal training, but it's still very much what we have been all along, which is getting people up close with animals and changing the way that people think about these species and in our oceans. So today, we have bottlenose dolphins. We have an active breeding program here. We do these wonderful interactive programs where people can meet the dolphins from in the water or from out of the water. And we also have an amazing sand tiger shark reproductive research program. And we also have 2 sea turtles who live here who for various health reasons are unable to be released into the wild, and so we're providing their forever homes for them. And then we've got an amazing aquarium with fish and invertebrates, a beautiful coral exhibit, some diamondback terrapin. We also have tortoises. We have red-footed tortoises. So this is really a great place where people can come. They can go on tours. We do educational programs for schools. We do summer camps. And so there's all different ways that people can find inspiration that's backed up by good science and good education. And then the goal is to have people leave here feeling empowered with maybe 1 or 2 simple things that they can do now that they feel this connection with the ocean to go out and make it healthier. And really that's now who we are. And after 80 years of figuring out what our identity is, I think we're pretty happy with where we are now. So this is Marineland. So one of the things that we're especially proud of here at Marineland is our ability to educate, and we actually do that for people of all ages, children all the way through senior citizens. But our youth programs are particularly special to us, and we reach children through schools, through field trip programs. We reach children through our summer camp program, which is available to kids 7 to 17 years of age. And then, of course, we reach children through our dolphin interactive programs that they can do by themselves or with their families. And one of the really great things about introducing children to animals is that some kids are not as comfortable around other kids, or certainly around other adults, and then they just light up and they blossom around animals. And for children like that, and adults honestly like that, these kinds of interactive programs and giving a person a chance to get up close with an animal who's not judging them, you know, who just is excited to play with them, can really change the way somebody interacts with the rest of the world. That experience on its own can change that person forevermore, even when they're not playing with dolphins. And I've seen it happen over and over and over. Maybe we greeted a family for their program, and the child was really shy, nervous maybe, not interested in speaking to anybody. But there's no way that those kinds of behaviors, the shyness, the quietness, that never stays once you get in the water with a dolphin. I mean, everybody's little excited inner child comes out at that point, and it's so great to see maybe quiet people, withdrawn people just get so excited when they enter the water. So that's one of the really rewarding things for us with dolphin programs. And the other thing that's really great, because we don't just do dolphin programs, is just connecting people with nature and reminding people how how peaceful that can be, to go for a hike, to go just stare at the ocean for a little while, to watch the birds flying overhead. I think nowadays people have not enough nature in their life. And one of the great things about Marineland is that we are an outdoor facility, and we're right on the beach, and we're right across the street from the Intracoastal. So it's not just about the animals here in our care, it's about the environment that we're in, and giving folks a chance to unplug and immerse themselves to what I think is sort of the best healer of all. So whether you physically need a little bit just of relaxation, you mentally need a chance to find something that inspires you and relaxes you, that's definitely all available here for, like I said, for children all the way through adults. Our summer camp program is really special because it's a marine science camp completely. It isn't just a dolphin camp, and in fact, it's not just a Marineland camp. We are taking these folks, these children, all the way through teenagers, to the beach. We're taking them hiking through the river to sea preserve trails across the street. We're getting them dirty, we're getting them sweaty, we're getting them sandy, we're getting them wet. We're reminding them it's okay to be all of those things, that everything doesn't have to be sterile and indoors and perfectly framed, and that science is cool. We get a lot of kids who love animals and love science, and if that's not encouraged in their family or in their school or with their peers, they may growing up thinking that that's not something to be proud of. But at our camp, that's exactly what you should be proud of. We're proud of it. Our camp counselors, our camp director, our education interns are adults who were those kids and who now have made careers out of this. So really being able to model careers in the field of marine education, marine science, veterinary care, animal training, that can happen here as well. STEM education happens here all the time. We are a biological institution. We've got chemists who are taking care of our water and making sure that our filtration system is at its best. So there's all kinds of ways that we can reach folks. And I think the one thing that's true across the board, no matter what kind of an education program we do, is that it brings people down to sort of an equal level of, these animals are amazing, let me find the way that they inspire me. And then from there they can go in all different directions. We know we have folks who are just inspired by the beauty, and for those people we do great art programs. And we have folks who are inspired by the science, and for those folks we do a whole lecture series. And so we want to make sure that we're really meeting people where they are, and whatever it is that they get excited about, we want to be there when that happens, and we want to arm them with the information so that they can do something good with that. For so many people, what inspires them is the chance to be hands-on with an animal and to look an animal in their eye, and we know we're good at that. That's really what we do every day and what we're great at. But we really are also reaching other folks who find their inspiration differently, and we're happy to be a part of that in the community.